All right, so we're getting a little bit more of a robust function here, but we've got a lot to do. And in this knowledge check, what we want to do is actually continue on with our ratio function. We want to add docstrings, and we want to provide a general description of what the function does. Make sure we document the parameters, excuse me, the return output, and maybe include some examples. So we saw in the reading that docstrings can be created quite simply, and it's just using the triple quotation, right? So we can start and end our docstring like that. All right, so the first line that we're going to put is going to be the very high level general description of what our function does. So I can say compute the ratio of two values, right? That is basically in a nutshell what our function is doing. Now we want to document the parameters. So a way we can do that is use parameters, and then I'm going to do dashes underneath to the length of it, and I'm going to say x, and then even here I can go ahead if I wanted to and say x is going to be a float or an int, and then I can specify what this is, numeric value to be used as the numerator. All right, and then what I can do is I can say, well, y, also a float or int, numeric value to be used as the denominator. And I have another argument or parameter called digits. All right, this should be an integer, and this is decimal digits to round the result to. Defaults to 2 decimals. Okay. Now I've got my parameters documented. I also want to document what gets returned. So I can say returns, treat that as a heading, and it's going to return a float, and I can say this is a numeric value representing the ratio of x and y. And I can even build onto this and say I want to include some examples. And in my examples, typically when you do examples, you type it as you would kind of see it in the basic Python interpreter. And so you would do the 3 greater than signs, because that's kind of what you would see as the default symbol in your Python interpreter. And you would say ratio 1, 3, and the result would be 0.33. All right, so now we have pretty good documentation here, right? So I can go ahead and I can run that. And the nice thing is, I mean, obviously this should still run as expected. But when somebody looks at the help information now, they now get very nice documentation on what the function does, the parameters required, what gets returned, and even examples.